This is interesting. I'm not trying to do the pat on the back for media here, but a Maryland court reopening the appeal process surrounding a convicted murderer because of a popular podcast. Now, Adnan Syed, he was convicted of first-degree murder. This was back in 2000. He was sentenced to life in prison, that after jurors found that he killed his ex-girlfriend. However, he maintained his innocence and became the subject of a popular serial podcast where journalist Sarah Koenig addressed holes in his case. Now, the Court of Special Appeals could hear oral arguments for his appeal in June. And I'm curious, and I'll start with you, in that, is it more surprising this happened, or is it more surprising this doesn't happen more often?
It's more surprising that it happened. It's such a long time ago. I mean, you hear sometimes convictions are overturned.
Yep.
It's not my field, criminal law, but you know.
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me. No, but I mean, because generally, in civil law, you have like 9 months to file an appeal, and then you have, if you're seeking to go to the Court of Appeals, you may have to seek leave to go to the court. It's over in 2 years. I mean, coming back 10 years, I only hear about it in a criminal case where someone was released because evidence came up 15 years later. But it's not anything we deal with.
You know, Mayo, I'm curious, do you think, whether it be prosecutors or wherever else, to decide to reopen it, that there's more of a resistance because it came from media? I mean, this became a very popular podcast. Is that we don't want the media telling us where there's miscarriages of justice or not. There's resentment to reopen cases, period. But do you think it's particularly so if it comes from media, even if it's the non-traditional variety?
Well, if it's media, you have additional scrutiny. You have light being shined on the process. But prosecutors are loath to review their own cases no matter what, even if it's a different administration from the same county, because it makes people realize that the system's not perfect and that we have innocent people who are in prison, who have criminal convictions, even if they're not in prison, and who get executed. So when you look at that, it makes people question the system. It makes it more difficult for prosecutors to get convictions. And actually, I think it restores the burden that they have to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. Lots of times, defense counsel, whether it's court-appointed or legal aid, or it can be retained counsel, we're at a disadvantage because the state has basically limitless money when it comes to prosecuting a case. We don't have that same amount of money to hire experts and investigators.
And I hear you guys complain about that all the time. And Mark, to that end, though, have you listened to this podcast?
I have not, but I'm a little bit surprised.
It's pretty compelling because it's not what you think, which is they surround this with all this hype. It's very straightforward. It's very fact-driven. And you listen to it, and it's become addictive for folks.
Well, I was surprised. Within a week or two of it starting, I got texts from ex-students of mine and even ex-clients. Have you listened to this? Have you heard it? And I really don't understand how it's grabbed the popular imagination by the throat, because we've had a wave of convictions overturned here in New York, particularly those coming out of Brooklyn. That's one of the reasons Hines lost.
Doug, why do you think it has? Because there's an appeal to it that's visceral. It's because, to me at least, it almost seems like you're learning as it's going along what's going on.
Well, I think you're looking, what we're looking at is now people doing their own investigation. You know, people sit on a computer now and they can actually look things up, piece it together. It was a time when somebody was convicted, well, they were convicted. It's
People,
over.
by the way, I'm looking at one of
well,
them. Yeah.
Right. So all those conspiracy theorists out there. Now you got it.
Research on the internet.
Right, but now you have it actually hitting the mainstream. It's hitting a nerve.
Listen, tenacious journalism, investigative journalism is going to catch the eye because it is that incisive, and that's what you have here. And when stuff starts ringing true in the midst of an era where so many convictions are being overturned, people listen. It's becoming an issue that grabs
and I advise people, even if, just check it out. It's a fascinating thing. Anyway, I got to wrap it up after the break here. But Ira, thank you. Hopefully we didn't scare you away here. We will be taking a look at some news making headlines after this quick commercial break. Gentlemen, thank you.